This could be very interesting.
Of course, it's very interesting. Everything we talk about is interesting. It's archery. Another week has passed.
Are we live?
Pardon?
Are we live?
No, we're not live.
Or
We're recording.
are we recording? Okay. Yes, it's another week has passed. And those biscuits are old, though.
Pardon?
Those biscuits are old.
They are.
Yeah.
It's terrible. The abuse that you face when you come here to record.
I know, yeah. I've looked at grand.
So this episode then is about archery styles. It's going to be very technical.
Yeah, I'm going to have to...
You answering a lot of questions and me not saying a word.
Yeah, I could answer questions with questions, but...
Are you feeling confident?
No.
You don't look it.
I'm dreading this one.
So let's get down to it then, the torture. So the main types of archery and how they differ, because I'm only aware of
the main types of archery. So I'm going to...
This is not an open book exam.
I have my notes here.
No.
I need my book.
No notes for you. I'm joking, of course.
Okay, I have my notes here because I knew this one was coming. Look, main types of archery. And I'm going to speak from an IFAA perspective.
What's IFAA?
International Field Archery Association.
Okay.
So they would be the international governing body over our national body, who are known as the Irish Field Archery Federation, IFAF. And that's where I do most of that's where our club is affiliated to, and they're the formats we follow, from coaching to shooting and bow styles and things like that. So anyway, different types of archery. There's two main. You obviously have your indoor archery, your outdoor archery, and you've got your target archery, and you have our more kind of field 3D archery as well. The indoor competition formats in IFAF, there's the two rounds typically known as, you've got your standard indoor round, which is 20 yards. And you have your another indoor round called a flint round, which can also be shot outdoors as well. And that's varying distances from, it's 20 feet up to 30 yards. It's great fun. But I do have to mention that in March 2026, IFAF will be hosting the European Indoor Archery Championships. Hopefully registration for that's going to be in July.
Right.
But it is going to be, I think they're going to be booked out very quickly.
And it's in Wexford, is it?
It's in Wexford, in Waterford.
Waterford.
The C2 Arena in Waterford. That's where they've held, excuse me, the last two indoor championships for Ireland, the national ones in the last 2 years.
If you could choke on your own time, that'd be great.
That's it.
Do you want me to get you water?
No, I'm grand. I've recovered from that bout. Stale biscuits. Anyway, the C2 Arena in Waterford has played host to the previous two national indoor championship competitions hosted by IFAF. An amazing facility. The hosting club, Nalockdal, did an amazing job of running the event, passed off really well. And they were a great precursor to the main event now coming up in March, where we'll be hosting the European Indoor Championships, the exact same venue. And that competition is going to consist of your standard indoor round, 20 yards, but also a flint round as well.
Is it over a weekend or how?
It's over an entire week. It's going to be great fun.
I have to put in for work.
No, it's a very significant event, and I'm hoping that our own little club will have a strong representation there as well. Hope that's everybody will like. But registration will open. I think it'll fill up very quickly. So that's an indoor, your typical IFAF or IFAA indoor rounds. You also have your outdoor rounds. Again, there's different types. You've got the 3D rounds, the UAR, your standard 1 arrow, standard 2 arrow, your marked animal. The UAR is what we call our unmarked animal round. Very popular, great fun. That's a 3D round, 28 targets. And what that is, they've got various 3D targets. They don't necessarily have to be animals. It could be various items or figures or fictitious characters, things like that.
Yeah, political.
Great fun. And what's nice about it is the rules dictate that even that you have different sizes, different target sizes on the 3Ds. They're set out in such a way that there's a ratio of certain distances for each of those targets, that they're not all at 60 yards. There's a certain component there that have to be up to 20 yards, up to there's 10 to 20, 20 to up to 35 yards, 30 to up right up to 60 yards. But there's a ratio there. They're spaced out 10 to 20, 20 to 35, 30 to 45, 40 to 60. That's the ratio. And but it's fun. And then the targets are different sizes as well. So UAR extremely popular, 28 targets. You've got the standard 1 hour round, standard 2 hour rounds as well. Again, 28 targets, slightly different ratios. And then you have what's called the field and hunter rounds. They're also outdoor, but instead of shooting at 3D targets, you're shooting at round paper faces, a maximum distance of 80 yards. Then you obviously have your indoor rounds. So they'd be the most popular kind. They're the rounds that are recognized in the IFAF rulebook, which would be subject to gains and records and things like that. And then the different types of archery. Then within IFAF, you have, or at the IFAA, you've got, I think it's 12 different bow styles as well. So as well as the competition formats and the number of bow styles, there's a huge selection there for people to draw upon to suit whether it's a style to prefer or even something that's just comfortable for them for whatever reason.
Okay, so I suppose, can you briefly explain the difference between target archery, field archery, and 3D archery?
Target archery is paper.
Right.
Paper faces, round paper faces.
Or balloons.
Or balloons. And that's what target archery is, round faces. And target archery can be both either indoors or outdoors. And target archery is very often set to just either one distance or maybe 3 or 4 distances. And it's a very kind of disciplined form of archery in that you really have to be, it's very much about getting the center. And it's you're shooting like, I think it's 120 arrows in some of the indoor rounds from the same spot all day. Now, you might alternate their faces on the backstops from top right to top bottom left, depending on the set. But it's there's a certain discipline involved in target archery, not to take away from 3D archery, but there's a certain discipline and focus that's required for target archery. It can be halfway through a competition, very often it can be there's a lot of room there for thinking and dwelling upon it. Whereas in the 3D archery, you're with a team, you're with a group, the day flows. There's not much room for too much introspection, reflection, or focusing on the target. For target archery, you're there, you're on your own, and it's just you and the target, and the bleeper. So what's the bleeper? The bleeper is a timing system, and this is all adds to it as well. And whether you're shooting with Archery Ireland or IFAF, you have a certain there's a timing system which has a bleeper, and when it sounds, you're called to the line, and when it sounds again, you're called to shoot, and you have a certain window there. It's in around 3 minutes.
No pressure then.
Just no pressure to shoot your end of arrows.
Yeah.
And you step back. You get most of them done within that time, but you're still subject to a countdown timer there, just the corner of your eye, it's counting away. Some people have their cycle set down almost to perfection, to letting off their last arrow sometimes seconds before it sounds.
Yeah.
They have that thing
perfected,
spaced out.
Yeah.
Some people are just stressed, but that's just but that's okay. That's okay. But it's good. So, like I said, you are certain. There's a certain rigidity and discipline involved in target archery that wouldn't necessarily manifest itself or be apparent in, say, 3D or outdoor field archery.
Yeah.
So you're not subject. There are certain time limits to outdoor archery, but it's not as regimented.
So, are certain styles of archery more suited to beginners than others?
Ooh, I'm drifting into my own opinion with this one.
Yeah.
And I think for beginners, traditional recurve art, the traditional style is ideal for beginners.
Yeah, because it's most straightforward.
It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
You have your bow, you have your arrows, you have your rest, and that's it. There's not much else. You're not worried about plungers or arrow rests or sights or clickers or crawls or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just you set up your bow, have your arrows, go out and shoot. Traditional archery, it's a great, and not detracting from the fact that shooting traditional bows is great fun anyway.
So how does traditional differ from modern?
There's mostly to do with, I suppose, the fine-tuning element of it as well. Modern bows, you have your metal takedown bow. It could be an ILF. You can get ILF traditional bows as well. But there's other things involved as well. You shoot, you don't have feathers. You can have feathers, but you can have plastic rubber
Yes.
veins on your arrows.
Yeah.
You have a thing called an arrow rest,
Yeah.
which is what supports your arrow from the riser or the handle of the bow. You have a thing called a plunger button as well. And this is a little device that's attached to the side of the bow. And it's for fine tuning where your arrow aligns with the bow, and also making tiny adjustments if your arrow is slightly too stiff or too weak. You can adjust. There's a spring tension in that button to allow the arrow leave your bow a different way to fine tune your spine. But this is where you're getting to the, I suppose, the recurve element of things.
Yeah.
There is a technical aspect.
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
And that's fine. That's totally cool. You've got your bow hunter rounds, your barebow rounds, your freestyle rounds, where you have that, and that's fine. Because you're into that element of fine tuning, and that's okay. Now, that's not to say you can't fine tune your equipment in traditional archery as well. A lot of people spend a lot of time doing that, and not just with carbon arrows, with timber arrows as well. There's archers out there spend weeks getting really reducing the tolerance of their timber arrows to really fine levels, almost as good as carbon arrows, sometimes even better maybe. So that's not to say that you can't tune your trad bow in the same way as you could a recurve bow or a metal recurve bow. But regardless of whether you do that, they are much more straightforward. You're not dealing with equipment that's bolted on or equipment that requires adjustment and things like that. Especially if you've got a single piece traditional bow, providing your string, your resters are in good condition and your arrows are sound, off you go.
It's a random question, but why do arrows have fletchings and how does it affect their flight?
Now, okay, my understanding, and this is my own, arrows that have fletchings, technically speaking, believe it or not, for correcting an archer's error. Okay. When you're tuning a bow, when you have your bow and you have a set of arrows, you're making up your set of arrows and you have your bow, you do a thing called bare shaft tuning. You stand in front of a backstop at maybe 20 or 30 yards. And I'm not saying that's definitive. There's a lot of information out there. Some people will recommend different distances. So I'm not saying that in a definitive way. This is what works for me. And what I do is I'll take my bow. If I'm trying out a new set of arrows or a new bow, I'll do a thing called bare shaft tuning, where I have my arrow set up, knock point, but I don't have any vanes on it. And I'll shoot, and I'll try and get my grouping and everything aligned at that distance, preferably on a clear day. So I'm shooting grand, and eventually when I get to that point where they're in the center, then I'll put my vanes on it. Your arrows and the vanes, the fletchings on an arrow, they're very much there to correct an arrow flight. Now, on a windy day, it'll help compensate for those elements as well, or other kind of factors that kind of might affect their flight.
Yeah.
But ideally, your arrow should already be flying straight when you come to tune your bow before you put your feathers on it.
Okay.
But that's really why they're there. It's just really for correcting archers, for the most part, with their arrow. They will help the arrow fly straight, obviously, but that's predominantly what they're there for.
So you were just saying they help, I suppose, in outdoor as well. So what are the key differences between indoor and outdoor archery?
The key differences between indoor and outdoor archery is you have, first of all, for some of the outdoor rounds, you're only shooting at one distance, one distance alone.
Okay.
So, for example, the 20-yard indoor, your standard indoor round, if I is one distance, is 20 yards. That's what you shoot all day, maybe even for 2 days. Whereas with some of the outdoor, with all the outdoor 3D field rounds, they're at varying distances.
Okay.
And depending on what bow style you have, your aiming technique could differ greatly from target to target. But with indoor or with the target archery, for the most part, it's one distance. The flint, you've got 5 distances, but there again, you've got 5 set, or is it 6 distances? 6 distances. They're set.
Yeah.
With another affiliation, Archery Ireland, they have a competition called a 720, which I really like, and that's at 50 meters. But again, it's 50 meters all day, 144 arrows.
What do we shoot?
We shoot 20 yards.
What's that in meters?
That's about 18 meters, roughly. give or take.
50.
Yeah, it's great fun.
I want to do that.
You will. You will. But no, I'm drifting into another affiliation or a different body.
Yeah.
But again, target archery is very popular with AI. That's where they started from. And they've got various formats in target archery. And that's one thing I really enjoy target archery. And 50 meters is a challenge on a windy day. But again, shooting barebow, once you've got that fine tuned down, it's nice to be getting it in around the, not the yellow, but certainly in around the red, which was nice.
Yeah, I'd
But
just like to get it on the target personally.
yeah,
Anywhere on the
exactly. So
sheet.
no, for me, so that's target archery. You've got maybe one or just a handful of set distances, and for the most part, in under IFAA rules, the most popular indoor round, which is your standard indoor round, that's what it's called, the standard indoor round, that's 20 yards. The flint goes up to 30 yards. That's it. That's the maximum distance for an indoor round. If you're doing a flint, it's 30 yards. If it's a standard indoor, it's 20 yards.
Okay, fair enough. And how does shooting indoors affect technique compared to shooting outdoors?
You would like to think that it doesn't affect your form. It shouldn't affect your form in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. So therefore, the only thing that's going to change is your aiming technique. And again, with traditional archery, some people use a thing called gapping. Other people do a thing traditional aiming. Once you have that set down, again, your form is the same. You have your spot, whether it's on the ground or the backstop of the wall, wherever, and that's what you shoot at all day. Now, when it comes to your technique, some people like to change their bow setup. Okay, so some people might prefer to shoot a higher poundage bow outdoors because it's the longer distances. They're dealing with maybe the elements of the weather and things like that, so they need to harder the shot to go faster and all the rest of it. I'm not saying that high poundage bows give a definitive advantage over low poundage bows. Just some people, that's what works for them. And myself as well, when I come to doing indoor archery, I like to drop down a few pounds.
Okay.
Because there's no need for me shooting those massive distances. But I do need to be trying to get to the center. So I'd much rather shoot a bow that I can just comfortably draw and aim. I'm not dealing with the wind. I'm not dealing with terrain.
Yeah.
So it's just me and my bow, like.
So then how does weather and wind, rain, that kind of thing impact outdoor archery? And what are some of the challenges of shooting outdoors, like wind, elevation, lighting, that kind of thing?
From an equipment point of view, it can impact archery massively. So just to follow the train there with, say, traditional archers, for example, on a very wet day, they will struggle with things like the feathers on their arrows just laying flat, and that can affect things. And not from an equipment point of view, with compound archers as well, depending whether you're using a pin sight or multi-pin sight or single pin sight, on a dull day, for example, if they can't see, you might be able to stand there and see your 3D target through the woods. But when you're looking through a sight and a thing called on the string called a peep, it's like a rear sight. Sometimes you just see black. You can't see anything at all. And the same can be on a sunny day as well, through glare and dazzle. Again, a compound archer might have struggled to zoom in on that target. Then you have other things like, for example, I found myself on a wet day, your string tends to get very heavy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of weight there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the impact that has on your arrow flight. So therefore, if your string's heavy, your bow drops in poundage. So therefore, your arrow starts acting differently because your arrow, where you had been shooting maybe a 30-pound bow, all of a sudden there's only maybe 26, 25 pounds delivered to the arrow. The arrow starts maybe acting stiffer, starts going off to the left. Weather can have a huge impact on equipment.
Sounds like it. Are there specific bows or equipment that are better for indoors versus outdoors?
Oh. No.
Grant.
No, there isn't. Now, comes down to fine tuning. If somebody's really top of their game, there's no reason why a longbow shooter with timber arrows can't be drilling at the center of a target in the same way as a freestyle unlimited shooter can. I'm not saying it does or doesn't happen, but when it comes to, that's really just down to preference. There's no bow I think that's better suited to indoor and outdoor.
Okay.
I think in that case, it's really just, that is down to the archer and how they've tuned their equipment.
Are there some people who just are outdoor shooters? They don't really do indoor?
Correct. Oh yeah, absolutely. There are some people out there, and for again, personal reasons, they will not do not only will they not do indoor archery, they point blank refuse to do target archery, period. 3D is their thing. And you have the opposite as well. Some people just target archery, that suits some people, that's what they love, they won't go near 3D. It's a personal preference thing.
And so what should a beginner consider when choosing between indoor or outdoor? It's preference.
I think it's doesn't matter. I don't think it matters.
Look and
Just
see.
try them both. It just depends on what's available to them at the time when they're heading out. If it's handy and it just happens to be an indoor competition, do it. If some of your club mates are heading over to a 3D as your first one, do that.
Yeah.
And the thing about the 3D one is, like I was saying there, with the varying distances on the UAR, there's a target called a Group 4. It's a small target, and there's a certain number of those in a competition. There has to be. There's a rule to say there has to be a number of those. And they're at around, say, 10 to 20 yards. There's another one that's slightly bigger. The rules say that they have to be led at between 20 and 35 yards.
Okay.
So if you're a beginner starting out, go out and enjoy it. Don't put yourself under pressure and shoot the Group 2s and the Group 1s. Shoot Group 3s and Group 4s and play around. See how it works for you.
Yeah.
Start off nice and gently. Just get involved. So for a beginner, I don't think it makes a blind bit of difference what format of archery they start off on. I think what is crucial, though, is that they go out with the correct equipment, decent understanding of their own form, and they have that bit of support with them as well.
Okay. So we're going to get into very technical stuff now. You might need your
Yay!
notes.
That's all that stuff out of the way now.
So what is recurve archery and why is it the go-to style for the Olympics?
Oh, now I'm going to, again, recurve archery is bow style. You have a bow, it's a recurve bow, and they call it a recurve bow because the limbs curve away from the archer when it's strung. It's a recurve bow. Why it's the go-to style for the Olympics, I'm not 100% sure. It's just always traditionally been that. They also use what's called, it's a sighted bow as well. So mounted on the bow, you have a thing called a sight, a device that's mounted on the handle of the bow. And inside the sight, you've got a circle with a glass lens and a pin, and that you can adjust that sight up and down, and then you shoot at your target.
Is that the one that I wanted to get and you were saying no? At this stage, no.
Yes.
Because I like the look of the riser.
Yeah. And I think at that time, and see, this is the thing, it was a kind of a package deal, but there was stuff there that you didn't necessarily need at this particular point.
Yeah. I just like the riser. I don't want all the other
see,
stuff.
This is it, exactly. And look, who knows, down the road, that's what you might be doing. And this is where it's important, I think, for people starting out to have a chat with somebody who, with the equipment they're set up. Because, that may well have been a fantastic riser, nothing wrong with it. But you would have bought a whole bunch of peripheral stuff that you just don't need, or you mightn't be ready to need, or by the time you do need, you might be, hang on, that's the sight that I did get, but it's not really the sight that I want.
Okay. And so what are the basic techniques for shooting with a recurve bow?
Now, the technique in terms of shooting style, again, something I say to the beginners all the time, your technique shouldn't change with any bow that you pick up. Your form, your stance, your relaxed grip, set to set up, everything stays the same. The only thing I can think of that would be a slight difference on your shooting style would be if you're shooting a thing called freestyle unlimited. So where with other bows you would be anchoring at your mouth or under your chin.
Yeah.
With this, you're using a device in your hand. It's called a release or a trigger.
Yes.
And it actually hooks onto the string. And there's various ways of releasing it. There's you can use your thumb or your forefinger. Some of them are actually hinged in that, like, when you just move your wrist, they release. So that just you might have a slightly different anchor with using those because your hand is turning away from your face. But everything else stays the same. Your form is your form.
Yeah.
And that's what you're always trying to perfect. And because that's where your consistency lies when you're holding your bow, regardless of whether it's a compound bow or a long bow or a historic bow.
So much stuff. I'm just going to, who came up with all of these things? And how does shooting an Olympic recurve differ from traditional recurve?
Traditional recurve.
Apart from being in the bloody Olympics.
Okay. When we say traditional recurve, I'm going to go all out and call like a traditional bow.
Okay.
Or a recurve traditional bow. The Olympic recurve, like I said, you've got the various attachments on it. You've got an arrow rest, you've got a plunger, you've got a sight. And whereas with a traditional recurve, you've none of that.
Yeah.
They're the main differences. The techniques in terms of shooting them as well with traditional recurve, and again, I'm not a traditional recurve shooter, so again, don't be going out on a limb and assuming something, but the two main types of shooting are traditional recurve bow techniques. The people use a technique called gapping.
Yeah.
and others are just purely instinctive. Whereas when you're shooting Olympic recurve, you're using a sight.
Yeah.
You have a device there on your bow, which is always aligned with your target. And then that's really just down, like you're saying, 400 or 500 hours a day. You're reducing that margin of error down, right down to that fine point.
And they've got massive, like really thick arrows.
Yeah, line breakers.
The plungers.
No, this is the thing. And this is where controversy amongst many others can. Archery's archery. But when it comes to different, it's funny how the rules can differ from one to the other. And I'll do archery hard and really enjoy the target shooting and some beautiful 3D courses out there as well. But I think in Archery Ireland there is a limit on the diameter of your arrows. There is a number in my mind, but I'm not going to throw it out there. But I know there's a maximum diameter on your arrows. Whereas I think in IFAA rules there isn't. They can be as wide as you like. That's fine. That's okay.
Oh, but some are ridiculous.
Some are ridiculous, but you look, at the end of the day, the rules allow, that's fine. But the whole, look, people, again, just some people call them line breakers.
Yeah.
Because it's all about getting, that line can be a difference between a 9 and a 10, or a 12 and an 11, or a kill and a vital, or a vital and a wound. And when you're into that fine level of shooting, when you're up around like 530, 540 points with a compound bow, you really are, and you're up against experienced high-end archers, you're not talking about 10, 20 point differences in a competition. You're talking about 1 or 2. And those lines are crucial. Because I think in Archery Ireland, you get the point if you're touching the line. Whereas in IFAA, you get the point you have to break the line. See, these are all little things.
I'm competitive, but that's ridiculous. Some of the arrows that I saw in that thing the other week, I was just like, that is ridiculous. It's like a broom handle with a sharp point in the end. I was like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But then I'm criticizing stuff I don't know about. So the main competition formats for recurve?
Again, the main competition for recurve are the exact same for any of the bow. There's no, in Archery Ireland, for example, they wouldn't have as broad range of categories for bow. But there isn't just a category that's just for recurve, per se. In Archery Ireland, you can shoot. And again, it varies. In some of the competitions, they might have a broader range of bows for the 3Ds than for the targets. I think in Archery Ireland, you've got traditional and longbow categories for their 3D competitions, but I don't think you can shoot those categories in their indoors. Whereas with IFAF, I've got 12 bow categories, you can shoot them in all the IFAF competitions.
And what qualifies as traditional? Just no bells and whistles?
There's no bells and whistles, basically. They do. Every bow has a list of criteria as to what fits them into a certain criteria, into a certain category. But for the most part, the traditional bow is you've no rest, you've no plunger, you're using feathers on the arrows. All the arrows have to be the same, and it's a wooden bow, very important, wooden handle, and wooden limbs. Now, some of the more modern limbs might have a lamination on them, but the center of them must be wood.
Okay. I suppose this is a very general question. I don't really know. There's no definitive answer to it. I can't talk. There's no definitive. I can't say definitive answer to it. But why do some archers prefer traditional bows, even though modern ones have advanced so much? Is it the challenge, do you think?
I think it's a challenge. Some people just have a loyalty to a category, believe it or not. That's fine too. Some people just that's fine. They don't want to try something new. That's okay too. But there is a challenge to traditional archery in that it is very much, you're not dependent upon things like string walking or sights and things like that. It is very much down to you and your bow. And so I think a lot of traditional archers like that kind of, that instinctive kind of part of it as well. And maybe in some ways they think that they're compromising an ideal by moving to a more modern bow or a more kind of a technically advantageous bow. This is my style, and to be honest, I find with most traditional archers, it's not so much as a discriminatory thing or a prejudice thing. I find most traditional archers have a fierce loyalty to the category, and that's fine, and for many reasons. And there's some amazing traditional archers out there. But I find with traditional archers, it's more of a loyalty to the category as opposed to a fear of another.
What role does instinct play in traditional archery?
It depends on the archer. Okay, I find when you're coaching younger archers, and it's just something that I've observed, people who are taking up traditional archery, say as adults, would tend to look at various techniques, like for example, gapping, where you're looking at a target and you're estimating a distance for your arrow above and below it using various pointers on the horizon. It could be a tree or a rock or something like that. Gapping. And so a lot of people who I find would take up archery at a later age would use a technique called gapping. But I found with younger archers, particularly with kids who take up target archery, before you even approach the whole concept of gapping, they're shooting grand. Like my own daughter does it as well. And she's doing really well. But she took up archery at the age of 8, going on 16 now, and she's doing well. But whenever I ask her, sometimes I'm curious, so what did you aim at? Nothing.
Yeah.
But what did you point at? I don't know. And they look at me and go, what's your problem? And walk off. And I'm trying, what did you...
I would be like that though.
It's instinctive.
Yeah, because if somebody said to me, do this and judge it by that, I'd be like, no, that's too technical. I just want to just shoot the thing.
Yeah, but I find with younger archers, they don't even think about it. They just... It's like the whole thing about, let's say you jump off a rock or a stool and you look at the ground. You're going to land there. There's no calculation. There's no mathematical kind of formula that you've suddenly gone through. I'm going to land that spot. But if you jumped off that and you change your mind, I want to land there instead, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think there's something similar going on with, say, archers who take up archery at a very young age. They have that instinctive, natural kind of confidence, and I suppose almost subconscious mental calculation going on. So when they release, they hit the target and they don't think about it. I think with people taking up traditional archery at later ages, now again, I'm drifting into opinion here, because they've gotten used to trying to solve things and think about things and work things through. I'm not saying that they've lost that gift. It's more suppressed. And that's why they look at gapping more and more. But I find, but that's what's nice. And I know I've noticed that with people who've taken up archery at a very young age, once they have that instinctive technique, it stays with them. The worst they can do is start thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, compound bows, my foe. I don't know why I have such a hatred for them, but I do. What makes it different from other types of bows? And what's the advantages of using one?
Oh, compound bows have traditionally I suppose they've got there's a very strong hunting heritage with them as well, because of their speed.
Would they be better for hunting or target shooting or both?
They'd be better for, now, obviously I have to start off with, we're not allowed to hunt with bows. It's strictly forbidden, and it's taken very seriously, frowned upon by the governing bodies.
But they evolved from hunting, is it?
They're from in America. It'd be and it's legal over there. And I'm not saying that you can't hunt with other bows, but they have an accuracy and a power to determine that when you're hunting, that there's minimal suffering to the prey. I mean, it's not just low poundage bow where you just hurt something and that's it. That's the whole point of a high-end, high-power compound bow. But coming back to our competition target leisure point of view, look, a compound bow is always going to be, like, by the nature of it, notwithstanding the fact that they're, for the most part, faster. You have your sight on the front of the bow, mounted on the front of the bow. You've got a thing inside the string called a peep, which serves as a rear sight. So you're aiming through both through apertures. There's a thing in a compound bow called a let-off, and that's where... Just for the record, you brought up compound bows. Come on, stay with me.
I'm trying to educate the masses and myself.
Look, I'm still educating myself about them as well. So it's but look, there's a thing called a let-off as well. And again, this is for the benefit of people just listening in, because everybody just needs to get their head around it. But a compound bow is, look, I mean, you've got things on a bow called cams. They're the wheels on top and the bottom of the bow, and they're not round. Sometimes one is, but for the most part, you always have one that's not round. Because when you draw your compound bow, they rotate in a certain way that that the string is hooked on them or caught on them. Again, I'm not using the right terms. I'm just trying to be general about this. But what is it? When you draw your compound bow, there's a thing called a let-off. So you're drawing your bow and you're pulling it's 40, 50 bow. But then at full draw, it locks open. And the pound just drops away to maybe 10, 15 pounds. Because of the cam, it's rotated a certain way. The string has gone around the cam and effectively hooked on the cam. So that's where the tension rests, in the cam or the wheel.
So if they're not both circular, what are they?
They're oval, kind of elliptical kind of shape. And so when they're rotating and the strings on, then at a certain point, the strings kind of almost hooked on them, for want of a better term.
I wish we were in a visual format right now to show people you doing this.
No. I'm using lots of hand gestures and things like that. But look, they do think they lock open, or
Sure.
it's called a let off. And that's one of the advantages of a compound bow is at full draw, all the stored energy is up there in the cam. That's where it is. So you're holding the bow, you can actually stand there for quite a while. All that power state, just nice and relaxed. And what that allows you to do is allows you time to aim. And look through the peep sight, look through your sight, and really focus on where it is you're aiming. And then when you release, all that energy is released. So there's an advantage. That's one aspect of the compound. To mention the fact that because you can do that with them, a lot of people will shoot very high poundage bows.
Yes.
Because they're able to, once you get to that point, the energy is stored in the bow. You've got your sight, your rear sight, trigger release, which is people again. Your fingers aren't on the string; it's a little hook. So again, there's no twisting of the string. Your arrow is going to go; it's going to be released straight from the bow. So there's certain technical aspects to the compound bow that, in theory, makes them more advantageous to say. A traditional bow, it's very much down to the archer as well. So it's a much more kind of 50-50 kind of thing going on.
Compound sounds to me like it would be better suited to people with physical limitations.
Yeah. So
now I don't feel resentment towards it.
No.
Why do I resent a bow? Anyway.
It's terrible.
God. So where were we? The pulley system.
Yeah.
How does that affect the archer's draw and accuracy? You've pretty much explained it there.
Yeah. And like all bows, the compound bow has to be set up to suit the archer as well. There's different ways of adjusting a compound bow to suit people's draw length and their preferred poundage and things like that. And even from a mobility point of view, you can get compound bows that are really short, and that's really if people are wheelchair users, for example, or for whatever reason. There's a lot of people out there with various neck and back and shoulder injuries as well, and the compound bow just works better for them because they're not holding a draw for any particular length of. They're not holding a drawn bow, as opposed to a compound bow.
And what would you say are common mistakes beginners make when they're learning to shoot with a compound?
Oh,
in your humble opinion?
I've never coached a beginner from compound because I still regard myself as a beginner, so I'm still making those mistakes.
So what mistakes do you make?
So the mistakes I make is I still have a static release.
Okay.
I do have that. And the mistakes I would make with the compound bow, I'm going to put it out there, it's the exact same mistakes I am making with any other bow. Okay. Which I suppose would be my static release. I like to think I've got most of my other technique down. It's not perfect, but that'd be my big thing. And again, that's been said to me before with a compound bow. I still have that static release going on.
But that was pointed out to you.
Yeah.
So what about things that you noticed over the years, mistakes that you were making or things you were getting stuck on? And I don't mean to use negative language.
Yeah.
But was there any kind of particular thing that you struggled with? Which is completely off topic, but now I just want to know.
At first, one thing I struggled with was my arm rotation as well. Now, I don't use a bracer anymore or an arm guard anymore. I haven't used them for a while.
Fancy.
Because, that was something like I didn't want to be carrying extra stuff either. I don't want too much stuff hanging around and I just lose them anyway. But like that, at set position, I get my arm rotated, and then into position then when I come to full draw. So like that, I'm able to get my bit of clearance there as well.
Yeah.
That was something I struggled with at first, but worked on it. Everybody can. But not to say that, look, I'm not great at it or anything like that, but I think I am confident that I have addressed most of the issues. It's just that flipping static release breaking my heart. Most of the issues I have now is really just, thankfully, equipment. It could be a tuning aspect or arrows hitting off the shelf of my recurve bow, which has started happening. I don't know why. It's doing my head in. And with my compound bow, I've got this right drift going on. I don't know what's causing it. Everything's spined correctly. They're technical problems. And I like them because it means I can sit down with a pen and a paper and a spanner and a screwdriver and work through it. I like to have a linear kind of process that I can work through to solve a problem. So thankfully, most of the issues I'm having will be technical.
Okay. Fair enough. So we're going to jump then. This episode's going to be very long.
Oh.
We are going to jump to 3D.
Yeah.
And field archery and target archery, basically. So again, it's all opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Why do you think some archers prefer shooting 3D targets instead of traditional? I actually like doing both.
Instead of traditional or instead of target?
Traditional targets.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, we tried some 3D
Yeah.
and I quite liked it.
Yeah. I think 3D for many archers,
It's just a
I
bit of a
suppose
difference,
it's different. For some archers, I'm going to be blunt about it. Some people like the whole notion of hunting.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's foam or whatever. It's something that maybe it's a primal thing. The whole concept of whether it's a bear or some of the 3D targets are zombies or funny characters, things like that. But just to get that out there, I think for some archers, it's a hunting
Sure.
thing. We're not allowed to hunt here, and that's fine. I have no interest in hunting, but some people do, and this is as close as they're ever going to get to it. And
Yeah.
that's fine. So there's that to it. That's why some archers like doing 3D. I love doing 3D myself personally. I really couldn't care less what the 3D is. It could be just a block of foam. I don't care. I really enjoy the woods. I like the different venues. I love the company. I love being able to shoot something that I have a certain amount of control on and make it work.
Yeah.
So that's why I love 3D as well. And again, that's for some archers as well. That's just the social outdoor aspect to it. And that's why they will never, ever do an indoor. And that's fine. That's their choice. Then why some people prefer 3Ds to target archery. Again, it's the selection. With target archery, very often you're set to either one or maybe 5 or 6 set distances all day. And for some people, they regard it as boring. That's fine. That's okay. Again, they like the difference, the range, the challenge, different weathers, different terrains, different techniques, different size targets, different groups of people that they're shooting with, whether they like them or they don't like them, whatever, the banter. They like that range, and that's what does it for them. I think it's very much it's a personal thing. I like to try them all because I don't want to pigeonhole myself into something. And that's not that I'm not talking from a kind of a higher standpoint, or it's just I like to dabble in different things. It's a personal thing as well.
Yeah, I was using the traditional target thing as a training for 3D and stuff like that. Obviously, the 3D we tried out, it wasn't set up like the way it would be outside, but it gave like what we do with the traditional targets gave me knowledge, so to speak, as to how to approach the 3D then.
But whatever you shoot, whether you shoot target archery or 3D or indoor or outdoor, whatever, all the shooting that you do, it's all relevant.
Yeah.
And it all counts towards something.
Yeah.
And it's always going to benefit your next competition, in my opinion. Whether your previous competition was a 3D or a target, because you're consistently learning.
Yeah.
And I think with some people as well, there is a certain amount of prejudice that again, going back to the loyalty to the traditional bow, some people feel, no, I'm 3D because that's the type of person I am. I'm a 3D person. That's who I am. That's what I'm about. That's me. That's fine. So therefore, I'm never going to shoot target archery. But they don't know because they might even enjoy it. It's fine. It's a loyalty thing. It could be a little bit of prejudice there, but that's their thing. That's fine. That's their comfort zone. Fine. No problem.
So then, how do terrain and obstacles impact how you aim and shoot? And
greatly.
What skills do you develop in field or 3D archery that transfer to other styles?
Yeah. Terrain and obstacles can form a massive amount. Like I was at a competition there on Sunday, a club called AS Donna, Wexford. Beautiful course, lovely course. And like that, there were some of the shots there. For example, we were shooting across a small lake.
Wow.
And that was nice. And again, but you've got a mental thing going on there as well.
I don't lose my arrows in the lake.
You can see them floating around.
Yeah.
and
there's a fire.
I knew there's a theory out there which I've never read. Some people reckon that when an arrow is flying over water, there's going to be
drag from the water.
It's going to drop heavier than if we were shooting over land. Again, I can only that's what I've heard. There was uphill shots as well. So if you're shooting an uphill shot, you're going to have to aim slightly higher than what you're comfortable with. If you shoot, some of the shots are almost 45 degrees downwards. So you can have to point a little lower than what you'd be happy with.
That sounds so much fun.
The one shot was a goat or something. It was a 40-yard shot. And it was completely silhouetted by the sun. I could not see the thing at all. I could make it a blur. And because I was shooting compound, I had to look through this small aperture on the string and then the sight. That's the challenge. So terrain, not just the terrain, but the weather, the sun, whether it's cloudy, whether it's bright, whether it's long evening, or it has a huge effect. And you know what? In many ways, I find that the worse the terrain is, leaving aside rain, I find traditional archers, they are in their comfort zone because everything else we're restricted, whether it's through a sight or a crawl in the street. But traditional archers, they're just, you know what? Aside from the weather, nothing on my bow has changed. But rain will ruin it. It will ruin many a traditional archer's day, though.
Okay. So I suppose that brings us on to then what types of bows are best for field archery and 3D shooting.
Oh yeah, for field or 3D shooting, any type of bow. And I'm not saying that to be PC or kind of open about it. I think it's when it comes to archery, I think if there's 12 categories, it depends on the archer. It's whatever you want to shoot, go out and shoot it. I know archers out there, they're shooting longbows with timber arrows, and they're doing the field and hunter competitions, which is a target face competition with maximum distance of 80 yards. And there's some amazing longbow shooters out there with wooden arrows. I think if the only restriction an archer has in a competition is the bow category. If it says 4 categories, fine, that's your restriction. If it says 12 categories, go for it. I've been with not that I've been shooting for a long time, but I've been around a few competitions to know that it doesn't matter. There will be limitations. You'll see compound archers will always traditionally, there'll be a kind of a higher platform of scores there compared to people shooting, say, longbows. But within that category, there's performance thresholds there that they're meeting and they're doing well, regardless of the competition.
I really want to try longbow as well, actually.
Longbows would be really cool.
Who has a longbow I can try? Do you have a longbow I can try as well?
I have, yeah.
You're going to be weighed down. You'll be like a donkey with all the stuff. If someone wants to compete, what type of archery should they start with?
Trad. In my opinion. Now, again, I'm not saying that to be definitive about it. But
it was very definitive in your answer.
I think...
No doubt, that's what it is.
If you're working with someone and they want to get out there and they want to get out there quick and you want their form to focus on their form and ultimately you want them to enjoy it. Look, at the end of the day, this is fun. If it's not fun, the day it's not fun for me, I'm dropping it. Gone, finished. I'll go off and do something else. It has to be fun. And like that, you want that from anybody you're coaching. You want them to enjoy it. And I do like that, and it's not that I say they have to do traditional starting off. I think it's an ideal way of starting off. There's a range of bows out there, and most beginners, we're all there. They just want to go out and shoot.
Yeah.
Get out there shooting.
Yeah.
There is a learning curve there, and maybe next year or 6 months' time they might decide I'm going to do barebow and do compound. You know what? Fine, make that decision. Go if that's what you want to do. Go for it. But yeah, we'll help you with that as well. But for the moment,
sorry to cut across you. Do you think someone should master one style before trying others, or is it okay to dip in around? Does anyone ever master a style though?
I think you're forever. It's like you're always having the distance to get to an endpoint, get closer and closer and closer and closer, without ever actually getting there. I'd say
that sounds optimistic.
I'd say I think it's great to try out different styles. Okay, but I wouldn't be, if you're trying different styles, I wouldn't be jumping into an expectation that I'm going to master this within a certain window and then move on to another style.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no point in jumping from style to style because you feel that you're not doing well in the previous style.
I'm just going to interject here and say that anybody listening with attention deficit disorder, this is specifically for you. Because we like to try and master everything straight away. And if we don't, then we're not doing it anymore.
No, it's because you're being very unkind to yourself then in that case as well. You're not giving yourself a chance to get comfortable with a style. To jump from one style to another, because if you shoot trad, this isn't working for me, I'm going to shoot barebow. This is not working for me either, I'm going to shoot compound. That's not how it works.
That would be attention deficit disorder right there, I'm telling you right now.
Oh my God, there's 12 styles. Happy out.
I have a whole craft room which screams this, by the way.
I'm going to try them all.
Yes.
And, go for it, fair play. But it depends on what your objective is and what you're expecting from a style. If you expect, you know what, I'm not doing this because that's the one for me. And I don't think jumping from one style to another because you've made a decision, this style isn't working for me. Because it mightn't be that at all. Because like I've often said, your form is your form. Your form stays the same for the most part. That's one. And then once you have your form down, your style is very much just down to your bow, tuning your bow, getting it to suit you. And I know I mentioned it before, and again, so much of this is my own personal opinion, my own perspective, and I can't reiterate that enough because I know with archery it's a very personal journey. People have their own experiences and their own interpretations. That's fine. So like that, one of the adages that's going around is that it's not you, it's the bow. And like I said before, I think it's like a combination. It's you and the bow. If either one isn't working, then neither's going to work.
Yeah.
Just the way it is.
Yeah.
So if people are exploring a different style, they have to be bearing in mind that it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So if they're shooting barebow, not only do they have to be constantly refining their own technique, they have to be understanding the bow, how the bow is going to work, the different crawls, the tiller, how their arrow tuning, the alignment, everything. Archery does require that amount of patience, because if it's a quick thing you're after, that's what's nice about archery. It gives you that bit of space to learn, explore yourself, grow a little bit, but you have to allow it that room.
Yeah.
And if somebody's out there and their objective is to win, perform, high end, fine, okay, pick a category. But you know what? It's going to take work, a lot of work.
Yeah.
If that's your objective, and that's fine. There's archers out there doing that, and they're delivering. Fair play.
Your preference since you first started.
Yeah.
This podcast is supposed to be about me. It's all about you.
Listen, let's talk about you,
How
Roberta.
dare we not focus on me at every minute of every day? Your preference since you first started learning archery, has it changed? I'm assuming, considering that you have all of the bows ever made, that yes.
No, I don't. I have a collection of bits and pieces at home that are in various states of disrepair all over the floor.
But it definitely has, and I think I'm assuming it has, judging by what you've said. But I think that's a good thing, because why pigeonhole yourself?
Yeah, but that's my preference. And like I said, see, some people will shoot trad that they're pure 100% diehard trad shooters, and that's not necessary. That doesn't mean that they're being somehow restrictive or prejudiced in that's their love and that's their passion. Fair play to them. Me, like I said, I like to dabble. I like to dismantle things, and then
Can you fix my sewing machine, please?
Yeah, I'll get to it.
It's not there. It's inside.
Oh, fine. We'll work on that. But that's me. Everybody gets their own little thing.
Yeah.
And so again, if you've got people out there who are longbow shooters, that's all they've ever done, and that's that's what works for them. It's not for me to say they should do different categories.
Yeah.
They should do different styles. They should try. No way. Absolutely not. If that's what you're comfortable with, leave it alone.
But that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's all about fun.
Correct. Absolutely.
So one essential skill that's important for all archers, no matter the style.
Skill. Now, are we talking about an archery skill?
I don't think that plate spinning really applies, or fixing
their
car.
I'm going to go out there, and it's not even a skill, but I think all art, because it's the way it's structured here. In archery, and again, I don't want to drift into platitudes or anything like that, but you've got so many people taking up archery now from many different backgrounds, different abilities, different objectives. And I wouldn't even call it a skill, but one thing in archery compared to maybe many other sports is, I suppose you have a duty of care in terms of how we treat each other. That's one constant in all aspects of archery that I think is important to maintain.
Okay.
Again, it's not a skill per se, because for some people in their shot cycle, what they really need to perfect is their anchor. And for other people, what they really need to perfect is their stance. And for other people, what they really need to figure out is how to use a sight. Everybody's got their own thing. But certainly the one commonality in archery, because we're out there in the field with many other different people from like I said, different backgrounds, different walks of life, different objectives, different abilities, different motivations. That's the common duty of care we have to ourselves and each other, is that to be mindful of that.
Okay.
We're just there to just have fun, but we have to be mindful that other people...
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. That's it, lads. Just don't be a dick, please.
So that's really it. Unless you have stuff that you want to say or add or anything.
No, I really enjoyed this. It's really cool. And look, I do have to emphasize, though, that this is also like my own perspectives, my own view. I'm not saying anything different.
You're legally being going to be held.
I'm sure, disclaimer, I'm sure I said something about the rules or bows that people are going, no, it's not really like that. It's fine, okay, grand. I don't know the rule book off by heart.
No, we have email addresses they can send abuse through to.
Yes, it'll all be read and treated with the equal disdain.
I'm going to be reading them.
Yeah.
If anybody says anything bad about you, they'll get an appropriate response.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
I'll agree with them and be like, yeah, he's horrible.
That's okay.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No, this is really fun. I think, look, I mean, it's all a personal journey. Everybody's got their own perspectives. This is just mine.
Fair enough. Good. Thank you for your time, Owen.
No problemo.
Staying by the wall and mind the arrows. That's going to be my little send-off thing for all the time. Okay. Bye-bye.
Before you go, I just want to let you know that our episode next week will be a little bit of a change. I'm giving Owen a week off from the stale biscuits, and I will be interviewing Veronica. Veronica is one of the founding members of Strongbow Archers and also the chairperson of Strongbow Archers. We'll be talking about her archery experience to date and the importance of mental health in archery. So, until next week, take care.